When I have 7:27, I call this meeting of the General Government and Public Safety Committee to order, and no attendance has been taken. Comments from citizens. And now it's your time to do the presentation regarding tobacco 21.
Perfect timing.
Oh. Okay. Everybody just stand here.
Sure.
Okay.
Introduce who you are.
So my name is Michelle Scheikels. I'm from Columbia, Boone County Public Health and Human Services, so the health department in Boone County. And our mission is to promote, protect the health, safety, and well-being of the community through leadership, partnership, and service. We have a vision of achieving optimal health, safety, and well-being for all. And policies, such as the proposed, or the one being discussed, Tobacco 21, are a critical step in achieving this mission and protecting the health of our most vulnerable, our youth. Despite long-standing evidence that tobacco is harmful to one's health, smoking has remained the #1 cause of preventable death in our nation. And just as we as public health professionals thought that we were making progress in the field of tobacco prevention, new devices came on the market. And we've kind of had a setback. And we are now at the point of what the Surgeon General calls an epidemic. And I'd like to give some data. Jenny is going to give data, but I believe it's nationwide data. I'm going to give some just Boone County numbers here. In 2018, 18.5% of Boone County youth reported that they had used e-cigarettes, and that's an increase from what we saw in 2016. 42% of youth reported that it's easy to get e-cigarettes in 2018, which increased from 36% in just 2 years prior. And we know that ease of access drives usage. So the easier it is for you to obtain these devices, the more likely they are to use them. And that's why these policies like Tobacco 21 are so important. And it's also important to note that youth who use e-cigarettes are much more likely to use traditional cigarettes. They're about 4 times more likely. And in Boone County, the smoking rate is 18%, but I think it's safe to say that if e-cigarette use continues, that smoking rate will rise. And I do want to briefly, just because I'm from the health department, want to go over the health effects. You are, I'm sure, all aware of the health effects of traditional cigarettes, but just briefly to go over the health effects of these e-cigarettes or vapor products. First, they're not water vapor, they are aerosols. They contain ultrafine particles, harmful chemicals, and heavy metals. They also contain nicotine. One Juul pod, Juul is one of the devices that you'll hear about, contains as much nicotine as a pack of cigarettes. And nicotine is very dangerous to the adolescent brain, to the developing brain. It changes the way synapses are formed, so it like rewires your brain basically. And it harms parts of the brain that control attention and learning, which puts youth at greater risk for mood disorder, and it permanently lowers their impulse control. So I believe Tobacco 21 is a good fit for this community. 90% of smokers start before the age of 21, and research shows that policies limiting minor access to these tobacco products works. Columbia Boone County Public Health and Human Services strongly support this policy, and it has had a positive impact in other parts of Boone County, and we believe that could have a positive impact for you all as well. Any questions for me? Okay. Pass it off to Jenny.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah.
So, I'm Jenny Chadwick. I'm the Western Regional Director for the Preventing Tobacco Addiction Foundation. Our organization solely works across the country on Tobacco 21. I happen to be based here in Boone County. So Columbia, Missouri was actually one of the very first places in the entire nation to adopt Tobacco 21. And I speak to you as the council member who brought that before the City Council in Columbia. And so I'm going to give you an overview, and I'm going to try to go fast because I respect your time, but there's a lot of information that I want to cover. So as Michelle said, we know that 95% of smokers start before the age of 21, and if they have their first cigarette by 18, they're twice as likely to become lifelong smokers. We have high school and middle school youth here today that are really going to highlight what's going on here in your local high school, because I think that that's a critical part to understand in this story. But what national data shows us is that 1 out of every 3 high school students are using tobacco products. We know that they're daily users. And for decades, we saw a decrease in tobacco use, right? So we were winning in the tobacco control war. But in 2011, e-cigarettes were approved to come on the U.S. market as a tobacco product. And since 2011, we have seen this huge increase in tobacco use, or any tobacco use, and it's strictly through the use of e-cigarettes. These kids fully understand the harm of a traditional combustible cigarette. They get it. But what they don't get, and what the tobacco industry has done a fabulous job at marketing to them, is e-cigarettes. And we know now that 1 out of every 4 high school students and 1 out of every 10 middle school students are daily users of these products. That was based on 2018 data. 2019 data has yet to come out, but it's going to be scary. We know that there was a 78% increase in high school students just from 2017 to 2018, and we are not going to be surprised by that same increase next year. So, you know, when I hear anecdotally from these high school kids that, you know, 50% have tried them, more than we know are daily users. And so, as I mentioned, right, we've had this huge uptake of e-cigarette use, and it's really reversing decades of trends of decline in tobacco use. We know that the adolescent brain is not fully developed until the age of 25, and especially the areas that are responsible for impulse control, decision-making, cessation seeking, and peer pressure. So that makes the adolescent brain uniquely vulnerable to nicotine addiction. Nicotine harms the adolescent brain. It is not harmful for anybody over the age of 25 whose brain is fully developed, although it's addictive, and the device that you intake nicotine can be very harmful to the lungs. But what we know about nicotine is it's a drug, it's a stimulant, it's highly addictive, it's as addictive as cocaine or heroin, and it actually causes the brain chemistry to change. So what happens is when you take in nicotine, before your brain is fully developed, the receptors in the brain bind to the nicotine, and it's what helps us to release dopamine, the feeling of pleasure, right? The chemical that helps us to feel pleasure. Well, in the adolescent brain, before those receptors are fully formed, the nicotine actually damages those receptors. And so without nicotine, your body doesn't release dopamine in the same way. And that's why, I mean, we all know somebody who struggles from a tobacco addiction, right? And it's really hard to quit. The average adult tries 10 times before they potentially make a successful quit attempt. And so it is a drug like no other in that it actually changes the brain structure, and that the earlier the youth is introduced to it, the more that it harms that brain. So in 2009, the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act passed. It set the federal age at 18, but it gave the states explicit authority to make more stringent rules. So from there, we look at state statute, and does the state give our local communities authority to raise the age? And in the state of Missouri, we have explicit authority in the state statute that says that local municipalities may make more stringent rules as far as age restrictions. So that has been tested through 20 local policies that have passed across the state of Missouri, covering 40% of the state population with Tobacco 21. So the Family Smoking and Tobacco Prevention Control Act also calls for a study to say what would happen if we raised the age to 21, right? What would the public health implications be? And what they found is Tobacco 21 doesn't reduce all youth from starting tobacco products. We know that there's deviant youth that are going to keep using the products. But what it does do is it reduces youth initiation in our primary target, when youth in our communities are starting to use tobacco products, by 25%. So no other tobacco control policy that we've considered thus far around the country has had this great of an impact at preventing youth from starting tobacco products. And that's why this is so important. We really want to protect our kids in our communities, and so this helps them to not start. Needham, Massachusetts was the first place to pass this policy. They passed it in 2005. They're a suburb of Boston. You can literally walk across the street and be in another community. They're 2 miles wide, right? The public health community honestly didn't even think this would make a difference. They said, you know, kids will just walk across the street, they'll go in another community, it's not going to have that much impact. But what we found was 5 years after implementation, Needham, Massachusetts high school smoking rates declined 50%. And we have seen rates like that across the country. Why does it work? I mean, why do we see this great reduction in youth use rates? So in the state of Missouri, we know that about 80% of our high school seniors are 18 before they graduate. You guys know an 18-year-old? Yes, right? And so 18-year-olds are in the high school, and they don't see their 14 and 15-year-old peers as kids, right? They see them as part of their social circle, and so it's really easy to provide them with tobacco products. But when you move that social circle out of the high school at 21, we don't expect that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are not going to get their hands on tobacco products, but it keeps the 14 and 15-year-olds from getting their hands on tobacco products. It also makes it a lot easier to identify a legal purchaser. Right now, in Centralia, you guys have a pretty high violation rate. So about 1 in every 6 kids who walks into a convenience store under the age of 18 is successful at buying. So we're not preventing our 14, 15, and 16-year-olds from walking in and not being successful at buy attempts. By moving it to 21, it makes it really clear when a 14, 15, or 16-year-old walks into a convenience store that they're not 21. It's just easier to identify they're underage. So again, the 2 places that youth report that they're getting their tobacco products is a social circle, their friends, or they're buying them directly from a store, because we know stores are violating the policy. And so this just makes it a lot harder for retailers to say, oh, we didn't know that they weren't of age, or we know that they're not of age because they're clearly not 21 yet. Tobacco 21, the idea whose time has come. This was the title of a New England Journal of Medicine article in January of 2014, right after New York City became the 8th place. So I told you Needham, Massachusetts passed, and then we had some suburbs of Boston, we had 1 Hawaii County, and the moment that I myself, found out about this policy was on November the 19th of 2013. And I had a school board member call me and he said, Ginny, have you seen these dates? I need to get tobacco out of my high school. New York City just passed this policy, and I said, we're Columbia, Missouri. We are not New York City, right? But he said, but I think this policy will work. And so now we have we're at 475 cities and counties in 28 states locally that have passed this policy. And today, the governor of Maryland signed the policy, so we have our 13th statewide policy. We have covered 40% of the nation's population in just these 5 years. Since 2013, New York City, there was only 2% of the population covered. Till now, 40% of the nation's population has been covered super quickly. And in Missouri, like I said, we have 40% of our state covered. The most recent policy was Hallsville, Missouri. You know, we passed policies in Eldon, in Oak Grove, in very similar sized communities to yourself. So when you think about, does this work for a small community? Oftentimes we hear, you know, but they're just going to go outside the community. We're not going to eliminate tobacco use. We're going to help prevent youth from initiating. So in Chicago, 1 year after adopting Tobacco 21, they saw a 36% decrease in their cigarette and e-cigarette use among the 18 to 20-year-olds. So we didn't have a lot of data in that demographic, so that older age range. So their 18 to 20-year-old tobacco use rates went from 15.2 to 9.7%. When California was our second statewide policy, remember how I told you that your retailers are violating at a rate of over 16%. So California's statewide rate was 10% of retail violations. After they adopted Tobacco 21, it dropped down to 5.9%. Didn't eliminate retailers from selling to underage people, but it definitely reduced. And it made it clear that retailers knew when they were violating the policy. So raising that age really makes sure that youth cannot go directly into the brick and mortar stores and buy the product. We know that there's broad public support for Tobacco 21. You know, that varies a little bit based on demographics and where you are in the country, but even the polling numbers that we have for Boone County and the state of Missouri show over 65% support by the general public for Tobacco 21. This was a summer styles report that was taken by Harvard in 2013. The CDC found similar data in 2014, 15, 16, and 17 when they surveyed, do you favor or oppose raising the minimum legal purchase age of all tobacco products from 18 to 21, showing a 75% favorability. That goes across all demographics. You look at current and former smokers, most people who smoke, you know, they wish they hadn't ever started, right? We all struggle to support and help those people who are currently addicted. And the older the demographic, the more they support Tobacco 21. But even the 18 to 24-year-olds, by far majority, support Tobacco 21. It is a policy that's endorsed by most national health organizations now. And in the state of Missouri, we have over 200 organizations that have come on, businesses to support Tobacco 21. And part of the reason why, the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce has done an amazing job leading the way in the greater Kansas City area. They have over 50 local policies within the Kansas City region. But, they understand that a smoker costs a business about $5,800 more a year than a non-smoker. So this policy will ultimately help to save those private businesses money in the long run. So I'm not saying that there's not opposition, because there absolutely is, right? And this might be counter to how you even feel individually. Oftentimes we hear, like, if you're old enough to vote, if you're old enough to fight for your country, you should be old enough to buy tobacco products, right? Like, when are we legal adults? Are any of you 18? You're not yet, right? But what we know about 18-year-olds is that there's a lot of things that we don't let them do. So they can't buy alcohol, they can't gamble, they can't rent a car or a hotel room, right? All those things we know are far less harmful than tobacco products. And so we urge you to regulate the most harmful known legal activity to that age of 21. The military has been extremely supportive of this policy. When we first passed this in the state of Hawaii, it was the first statewide policy we had, the federal military bases don't have to comply with state law. And so we honestly didn't know what the federal bases would do. 2 days before the policy took effect, they came out with a statement. We absolutely want our young men and women who are serving our nation to be free from addiction and combat ready. And that means that we will be applying Tobacco 21 on our federal bases. And that message has been over and over repeated in communities where we've passed Tobacco 21. The other concern is that we're going to hurt business income, right? If you regulate a product, you're going to decrease city sales tax, and you're going to hurt business income. So we know that the 18 to 20-year-old only purchases about 2% of the sales of tobacco products. So this is some literature out of Harvard on research study that they've done. And so it is a small portion, but it's enough to get them addicted for a lifetime. And so by raising that age, you're going to reduce sales slowly. As far as city sales tax revenue, we have a state that has the lowest sales tax in the nation on tobacco products. We charge 17 cents a pack. The next state is 54 cents, and that's North Dakota. The average state tobacco tax is $1.28. You at a local level cannot increase tax. It is prohibited by state statute for you to do anything with tobacco tax. And so we are not going to hurt sales tax that much. It's like 0.002% of our state tax comes from tobacco products. So we know that it costs us over $300 million a year just in Medicaid costs on tobacco-related illnesses. So tobacco is something that is costing the state greatly, and we don't bring in that much revenue from it. Other opposition that we hear is that e-cigarettes are a cessation product. They help people to quit smoking. So what we know is that for every one adult who transitions entirely from combustible traditional cigarettes to e-cigarettes, we have 80 youth becoming addicted to nicotine and tobacco products. It's a 1-to-80 ratio. It is a place where youth are getting addicted to this product. There's very little research to show that e-cigarette users successfully quit nicotine. They might successfully transition to e-cigarettes, but most are dual users. And we will not deny that e-cigarettes are a harm reduction strategy for those already addicted, but they are the way that our youth are getting addicted. And so we absolutely want to make sure that we move that age to 21 for e-cigarettes. I'm going to show you, these are e-juices. The tobacco industry, we banned flavored tobacco products long before these kids were even in a grade, right? But e-cigarettes are exempt from that flavor ban. So they fall into this gray area where the e-cigarette industry can flavor products because it's not through regulatory authority, and it doesn't look like they'll take it anytime soon. And so these are actual e-juices that youth can find in vape shops. They look very familiar to kids. And for those of you who haven't seen it, this is a Juul. And I brought one with me. So I brought a blue device and a Juul, and I actually purchased this blue device at the gas station right across from the middle school. About 3 months ago, the middle school principal said, can you come up and talk to our teachers, our faculty and staff about e-cigarettes? We know that it's an issue here. And so I walked into the gas station and said, "You have Juul?" And he said, "Actually, no, we just have blue." And I said, "Okay." And so I purchased the blue, and he goes, "Oh, well, it comes with tobacco flavor, but it tastes like shit," his words. And so you should really buy the mango flavor, right? And you smell this, and it smells fruity. It's very attractive to kids. So this is a blue device. And then this is a Juul, right? Each Juul pod contains as much nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes. Your local convenience store sells them for $15.99 a pack, so you get 4 pods, right? So you're getting 4 packs worth of cigarettes of nicotine. So probably mango is in here. So there's about 200 hits on a Juul, right? So you get a whole pack of cigarettes worth of nicotine and 200 hits. Obviously, they look like a thumb drive. They're very easy to conceal. Your high school principal said, "I am shocked when I search a backpack and I don't find a Juul," right? Most kids have them now. They give off very little odor when it's emitted. The industry has spent $300 million in the state of Missouri targeting our kids this year alone, right? I don't blame the kids. I blame us for not taking action to protect them. This is a policy that gives us a way to do that. So as I mentioned, Juul is the first thing on the market that is like what it is. It is nicotine salts. So it's cured with, the nicotine is cured with benzoic acid. So if you look at that top chart of the line, the yellow line is the nicotine level that you get into your bloodstream when you hit when you take a puff of a traditional cigarette. Right? So the nicotine spikes, the yellow line, and then it slowly goes down. And the dark blue line down at the very, very bottom of that chart is a traditional, as we call traditional, e-cigarette, right? So the e-cigarettes that first came on the market, the nicotine absorption was very low. Juul is the first thing that we've ever seen that hits that spike almost like a traditional cigarette, but it doesn't stay in their blood as long. And so youth are 9 times more likely to use a traditional cigarette if they've used an e-cigarette. And I think anecdotally, I think it's because kids are in withdrawal. They are addicted. If we think that 1/3 of all kids going to high school right now are using tobacco products, they're addicted while they're at school, they're in withdrawal, and if they take a puff of the traditional cigarette, it's going to stay in their bloodstream longer. And so those kids that know that cigarettes are harmful and wouldn't have picked it up are now transitioning from e-cigarettes or Juul to traditional cigarettes because of this nicotine level and the absorption. Juul came on the market in December of 2015. The FDA said no new products could come on the market after January 2016, or they would be regulated. So anything that existed on the U.S. market prior to January 2016 could stay on the market. Juul came on the market knowing this in December of 2015. They are now a $15 billion company. They have sold $15 billion of products to our kids. And as you can see, the line of, they take over the market. IQOS just came on the market. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Philip Morris has a product called IQOS. It was just approved for the U.S. market. It's been in Europe for a while. It is a very similar device to Juul. In the first week they were out, they have been proven that they are targeting our kids, right? They promised the FDA they would come on the market as a cessation device for adults. First week on the market, they've been on the market literally 2 weeks now, and it is clear the FDA has proof that they have been directly marketing to our kids. So oftentimes we hear that e-cigarettes don't contain nicotine, right? I'm using a nicotine-free e-cigarette. So what we know based on CDC testing, because they're not regulated by the FDA, is that even those who claim they're nicotine-free have trace amounts of nicotine enough to get addicted, right? Enough to addict our kids. So 99% of disposable and 99.7% of rechargeable. Rechargeable is blue, is Juul. Juul always has nicotine. So these e-cigarettes contain nicotine and they're hooking our kids. So what does a Tobacco 21 policy look like and why? What we have across the country is that all Tobacco 21 policies include all tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, right? So it's a comprehensive definition. of tobacco products. We set the sale age at 21, and that's a very important concept and component of this policy. This is not a youth penalty policy. This is to go after the retailer who is making a profit off of selling a deadly addictive product to our kids. And so the penalty and the enforcement structure goes on the retailer who is selling to the underage purchaser. You guys already have a tobacco retail license in existence on your books. I don't know if you're issuing a license, but it is in your statutes. So when I pulled your code, and I know that Chief Bias and I had kind of looked over it, and he made a comment that you guys are only charging $1 for the retail license, but that was in existence. So you have the structure to license. We often encourage, and you know, it's something that Boone County, I think, as a whole will need to go to, but the health department doing the regulation. But definitely, you know, seems like you have the support of your chief here, so he can definitely do the compliance checks of the retailers. We encourage that all retailers get checked. The FDA only checks about 10% of your retailers per year. So the state of Missouri puts no money towards tobacco control. I take that back. The state of Missouri puts $50,000 a year towards tobacco control. They have a quit line. And they allocate $50,000 of state funding towards tobacco control. Any other tobacco control that happens in our state actually comes from federal dollars. And so the FDA gives the state of Missouri, and it goes through the Department of Mental Health, a certain amount of money, and they do about 10% of the retailers each year. So thinking about your retailers might get checked once every 10 years to see if they're selling to an underage youth. So local communities, we encourage them to check the retailers at least once a year, sending in a youth decoy to see if they're selling to minors. We definitely encourage you to put a penalty, a financial penalty on it, but what's more important than a financial penalty is the ability to suspend or revoke the license, the tobacco retail license of those who continue to violate. For the most part, our retailers want to comply with our laws, right? But what we find is that those retailers who violate continue to violate. And so the ability that after the second or third time they're caught selling to our kids, that there's a suspension period of 7 days or 30 days. And then the fourth, how many strikes before you're out, right? Like, how many times do you get to sell a deadly product to our kids? We really encourage you to not put the penalty directly on the youth in a tobacco 21 policy. We ask that you ask for an age verification. Believe it or not, that, you know, federal law says that you have to check it at 27. So we encourage you to check it up until 30. But there's not really a good requirement. Like, we're not doing compliance checks to check to see if they're even doing an age verification. And federal law says it means they need to reasonably look over age. Local signage, educate your retailers to let them know the policy is in place and then set an effective date. We typically recommend you're a small community, so it's going to be easy if you were to adopt this to get the word out to your retailers, right? In bigger communities that we work with, we say, you know, give 3 months time to allow everybody to know what's going on and get up to speed on getting signage and whatnot. If you were to pass Tobacco 21 today, of the kids alive under the age of 18 that we know will become addicted and die of a deadly substance, we will save 17 kids right now. Kids alive today who would become addicted and die of a tobacco-related illness if you pass Tobacco 21, based on what we know of the rate of decrease in initiation. The tobacco industry knows that it has to addict our youth, or they won't be lifetime users. I want to give this opportunity for the youth to talk about what they're seeing in their community now.
Okay, my name is Grafton Littrell, and I'm a junior at the high school. And I think my biggest thing is, I think high school and school in general should be an education purpose. Like, teachers shouldn't have to worry about who's juuling in the bathroom and going down there. And another big thing is, like, in between classes, if I want to use the restroom, I personally don't want to go in there because I don't want to walk in and see 15 kids in there smoking on the Juul, and if the teacher walked in assuming I was part of the crowd and just getting put in that situation, I just think that's this is my big problem. I don't want to deal with it in the school, you know. And so that's my big issue to push this. Just get it out of the schools, because 18 is when you can buy it. that's half the school right there, so that's all I have to say.
My name is Gracie Schultz. I'm also a junior at Centralia High School, and one of the main aspects I just want to emphasize to you guys is the main suppliers of the high school are seniors who are 18 and able to purchase this product. So it's easy for underclassmen to get these products, kind of like Jenny was talking about earlier, for seniors to reel in like freshmen, or because I remember when I was a freshman, I saw the seniors as like the top dogs, and you know, you want to socialize with them. If they were to offer me one, I probably would have said yes in the time, because they're just more of the bigger influencers on their lives, and I can see how their lives can be impacted. And another thing is, I have people come up to me and admit to me that they wish they would have never started this e-cigarette just as a teenager, because now they're hooked and it's hard. So that's just what I want to bring up to you guys. Thank you.
I'm Mallory Smith, and I'm also a junior at Centralia High School. And one thing that I would like to emphasize is just how common that it really is. You know, I think it's weird when I get in someone's car and they don't have a Juul. Like, everyone has one, if somebody were in school, in class, hey, do you have an extra pot, I'll pay you after class. You know, something that gets passed around during class. Like, one of the pods was a whole pack of cigarettes. I know people that will smoke a whole pod in an hour. And I think it's crazy how common it is to just to do that, like buying a pack of pods every single day or every 2 days. That's $20 that everyone's spending, and that's a real thing that's happening. Like, my friends are doing it, and I just really worry for their health, because it's just crazy how common that really is.
And data shows that kids are going through about 2 to 14 pods per week. So if you think about the amount of nicotine that they're taking in.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm going to be a freshman next year, so as you can tell, I'm feared for that year. And so as a going to be freshman, I don't want to walk up to some seniors that I might know and they ask me, do you have any cigarette? If not, do you want one? And my sister, of course, she's going to be a senior next year as well. So she is warning me that there are a whole bunch of e-cigarette users at that school. I have a few people that I know, aren't very friends with, acquaintances, that have said, hey, do you have a pod? I'll pay you after class. And it freaks me out. So I have no choice but to refer that to the principal and have them take care of it.
And that's happening to you in middle school?
Yeah, in middle school. And 6th graders even asked us 8th graders if there was any way that we could get them an e-cigarette. And that's really scary. Because, of course, their brains have not even become close to developing.
I think like people are like the young classmen and even like the seniors, they think it's cool or whatever, which I don't think it's cool, but it's, I think it's a little crazy how we will put like the Juul and stuff in our body, but we won't put a cigarette. Like, I know tons of people that would smoke a Juul before they smoke a cigarette, and they don't even know what is going to happen to them later down in the road. Like, no one knows yet, and I think that's the craziest part. Like, you don't know what the long-term health effects are going to be.
You said you were afraid to go in the bathroom. Is that like just about any given day, any
No,
given
it's
hour?
every day.
You know
Like,
you're gonna walk in and there's gonna be, I mean,
and it's obvious. Like, you see two,
you know it before you even walk in. There's gonna be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them in there.
Yeah, it's like, there's like one hallway, I'm like, alright, I'm not going to go to that bathroom. I'm going to go to this one. Because you'll see a teacher standing outside the door, but they can't like, they're not going to go peek in the stall and stuff, because that's, I don't know, that's weird. But,
That would get him in jail.
yeah. But it's obvious, you know what I mean? And it's, needs to be taken care of, I think.
There are kids who actually do it in the classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
I've
doesn't.
got 2 kids who, well, one just graduated from CHS and one sophomore. There's kids that are doing it in the classroom. I mean, back in our days, you know, It was under the bleachers with a cigarette if you were doing anything or waiting until after school.
Smoking in the
Well,
boys' room.
well,
Yeah,
Smoking in the boys' room.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
that hasn't changed over the years.
It's very insidious at MMA, that's where I work. And, you know, the lack of it leaving an odor, makes it even easier to hide. And do it surreptitiously.
It doesn't produce as much of a smoke as a normal cigarette would do. And it's like, you can't just sit in the bathroom smoking a cigarette.
Exactly, yes.
Sit in the bathroom.
Is it getting worse
Oh,
by
yeah,
the
like,
day, by
my
the?
freshman year, I don't remember it being as big of a deal, but now it's like we were just talking about it in lunch today. I say, like, we did just like a survey and stuff. It was like 50% have one, or it was like crazy how many people have tried it, and yeah, I don't know, it's just crazy.
Hey, Grampton?
Yeah.
How many people were suspended the week before prom?
I'm not sure.
Three.
Three is there?
Three.
Yeah. That's, and they can't go to prom. It's embarrassing.
And
Let me just throw something else out here to you. E-cigarette is an issue, not only because of the tobacco use, but e-cigarettes can and will be and have been modified. I'm gonna speak of something that y'all probably gonna look at me like I'm crazy, and you say, what is this? There's a wax form of marijuana, and that's what it's called wax. The jewels, the pods can be taken apart, they pick their wax, they put it in it. So now we're sitting here, we're smoking marijuana, and the bad thing is, there's no odor. So the fact is not only are we smoking nicotine with this thing, we're getting stoned in class, and the fact is, what do you say? A learning environment. Is that a learning environment? No. So, yeah, do I back this thing? Yeah, I back this thing, because the fact is, like I said, you know, and just to let you all know, I have talked to Neville, DC's. He has no problem with this thing whatsoever. I have not talked to any other retailers, but the fact is if it's an ordinance, and they'll follow it. It's just another tool in the toolbox to try and reduce the amount of use of those tobacco products by those young kids. And, you know, it's nothing gonna be good, but a good thing. So, like I said, I'll let you all take that advice from there, so. But,
Can you buy this online?
So Jewel has made it so you have to be 21 to purchase. Like Jewel is one of, you know, they'll say they're trying to prevent youth use.
You can't buy, anybody can buy them online.
Online sales, obviously you have to have a credit card and you have to be able to mail it somewhere. So it's a little bit harder for youth to hide the fact that it's hit a credit card and now it's being shipped to your house. It's not to say kids are not buying it online, because they are. That has to be regulated at a state or federal level, right? Unfortunately, you guys could say face-to-face transactions only, and then it's just a matter of Chief Bias, good luck catching it through the mail, right? Like,
Some
You
things
can-
can be regulated at home
yes, right, yes.
as well.
You can regulate it, but it's gonna be hard to enforce. Does that make sense? You can make a law to say you can't do online sales in the city of Centralia below 21, but that's gonna be hard. And in case you guys didn't pull the pod out to see or haven't seen one, if you wanna just, there's another e-cigarette over there, but if you wanna just pull it out, I mean, like Chief Bias says, it's really easy for them to manipulate this and put other products in it. And what we know is about 1 out of every 10 kids nationally is using something other than the nicotine that it originally came in, right? Be that marijuana or Viagra, you can basically get anything in the.
I know this is a stupid question, but do you have to charge them up, or what do you do? Is there a battery in there? How do you get this thing to operate?
You can charge it on a computer if you want to.
So here's the charger
You
right
charge
here.
it?
This is the charger. You just stick it right here on the charger and stick that right in your thumb drive.
This
Good,
computer
Ryan.
No thumb drive?
We're not that high tech up
Chief
here.
has a thumb drive over here.
When they first came out at MMA, we were like, why do they have these jump drives? Not realizing that's what we were looking at.
Oh, I've had school teachers, I have 2 kids in Columbia Public School, and my daughter said, the French teacher said, who lost their thumb drive?
No, seriously, I agree. when they first came out, special.
What if they make them out of ink pens? Is that next?
They do have ink pen
Oh, they
sheets.
do have those. Oh, see, Central,
They actually have hoodies now that you can get, so that the string is.
gonna buy one and I guarantee it.
And he's over 21.
Yeah. Wait.
oh, man.
Jenny, you mentioned as low as 9 years old, or someone mentioned at our meeting.
Yeah. So I'm Jennifer Watson. I am a tobacco cessation and prevention coordinator for the health department. I worked with a mother in Boone County, and the youngest child that I have seen thus far was working with that mom, and that child was 9 years old.
I mean, we do hear a lot of like sixth grade incidents. I mean, if we know that 1 out of every 10 middle school students is daily users, you know, I've heard middle school say probably 50% of our middle school kids have tried it, and that number's probably even higher in the high school.
It's not just like the people you wouldn't think so. It's like the kids that are in sports and people that are big in the school and care about their care about themselves. They're still doing this.
The industry has just done a phenomenal job of targeting our kids, and we've let them do it.
They have for years.
As she said earlier, they made it in miniature versions of ice cream and juice boxes. So of course kids would see that as fun and kind of colorful and whimsical and think it would be even cooler now that they say, hey, this one's ice cream flavored, do you want to try it? So they make others peer pressured and think it's cooler now since they have different flavors.
I don't know what everyone's thoughts are on this. I'm curious if Sydney could make a simple
I'm
ordinance.
David,
sure she could. I think
David,
she-
not to interrupt you, there is a sample ordinance that she can provide you
Okay.
that is, actually meets language for everything you need to do.
She's already been drafted.
I would definitely like to see the sample ordinance and
If you wouldn't mind to send it to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I did, but if not, I'll send it again.
I'm sure most of us know that answer.
Yeah, so Hallsville has just adopted one recently, right? Columbia has the ordinance in place. I went ahead and just edited your current city code to be up to date with what it would look like for what the rest of the state is passing.
So if this were to be 21 to be able to use tobacco products, nobody under 21 could sell them in a retail store either, could they?
No, we actually are not, like, that's twofold. You can regulate the person who's selling, and what we don't want to put low-wage clerks out of a job, right? And so we're not regulating who can handle the products, but they can't be sold to them. And so I'm trying to remember if Missouri, because I work across the nation, and so if Missouri has language on the age of a retailer's sale, I think you might have to be 18 in the state of Missouri to sell the product. And so it's still set at the same age. We're not regulating the age of the seller. We're regulating the age that the seller can sell it to an individual.
that would hurt a lot of fresh high school grads looking for jobs and
Yes,
stuff.
yeah, and that's not our aim here.
Does the board have any other questions for our presentation group?
I just want to say, hey, kids, thank you.
Yeah, you guys did a good job.
It takes a lot of courage to take a stand like this.
Thank you.
All right, who took the E, said the
It wasn't Donnie, was it?
Sorry, guys, you know how we are.
If you guys don't have any more questions, we're headed to the school board meeting where they're gonna answer some questions over there at school.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you very much for
I'll see you guys at the school board meeting.
Moving on to public safety, fire department, that should be reports in the packet. Anything you want to point out?
Nothing exciting, really.
I don't have
So it's on page 2, it's on part 2.
Part 2, yeah.
I got it.
You're welcome.
Any others for fire department?
Everything's working
The mint.
properly. We're getting ready for our annual end of May camp out.
I want to hear it.
Thanks for that. You got it.
Your exuberance is felt.
Exactly. Any questions for David? Moving on, police department, activity reports in your packet. Bob, is there anything you want to point out?
Not on the, well, you'll notice the activity report has a little bit of a different look to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the new CAD system. If you need a class sometime to understand it, I'll have to do that. But like I said, it's a little different how to read it, but it gives a little more detail actually than what the previous one did. And the reason it's split up is because on the 17th of April is when we switched over to the live CAD. It just, like I said, it's,
I have to add both numbers together to get
yeah.
last month was.
Yeah, it's, we're still working on it. It's a work in progress.
Transition, right. Sure, I understand.
Along the top of that report, what does CFS stand for?
Calls for service.
Yeah.
I actually like this a lot better, it gives a lot more detail.
And like I said, we'll get it down to where you actually have numbers and such as, and like I said, it's hard to do right now, especially when you split them off, so.
Other proposed court fine schedule, that's in your packet.
This is something that Sydney sent, effective May 1st. This really isn't an option. The OSCA, the Office of the State Courts Administrators, is trying to make all of the fines in all municipalities the same. So streamlining everything. So this is what they have suggested, so we will have it ready for passage next Monday night.
It's not a huge increase, it's like 10 to 15 bucks over what it currently is. It wasn't huge, but we were behind on fines.
Yeah. Some are different, like the fail to stop at a stop line before a crosswalk, whatever. That's a 60/50. We were at $25. So that's gonna be an increase, but most of them are not much more.
There's a lot of them that are able to be paid out of court, which the list is, what you're seeing is ones that can be paid out of court on this list.
Right.
And this list is actually quite as long as the previous one was. There's actually one on there that shouldn't be on there because we don't have the ordinance against the legal return, but that's another story.
I love that law.
And the lack thereof.
The lack of, yes.
There'd be a lot of people in this town getting in trouble if there was
It is
one
not illegal
against
to return
Utah.
citizen trade.
Returns.
And we
You
would,
try to find it in the ordinances, it ain't there. So,
we would still keep our additional $25 for speeding in the school zone.
Any questions on the proposed schedule? Moving on to emergency management.
hold on, we got one more thing. As of today's date, we've issued 104 golf cart / ATV permits, just FYI for you.
Cool.
So, I've actually issued more than I thought I would. So,
I mean, you get pulled over for a violation.
I have not pulled over any because as Alderman Hudson told me, I shouldn't be on the police car.
No, I said you wouldn't get a cup holder.
No. A few months ago, it was, you can't go out and enforce laws, but that's okay. But, I don't know if we've actually had any contacts with
You see that list of what our new CAD system looks like?
Mm-hmm.
I have no way to break that down. Not yet.
Just curious.
We're working on it. And, hold on.
None for you.
Done for a U-turn in.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm done with that part now, then we can go on to emergency management.
Oh, yeah.
Any more drive-offs? On gas?
I honestly couldn't, well, yeah, that's right. 2 o'clock is there for 4. We will discuss that further unless you wanna discuss it now for just a minute.
I was just curious.
Yes, there have been more, and we're gonna get into that next Monday, I believe, so.
Well, we can get a brief update. We've met with, we met with Neville, who owns DC's. And he expressed his concerns over the ordinance, but in the end said, I'll go with whatever you do.
I can go either way.
I can go either way. But when we did get an email that will be included in next week's packet from Eagle Stop, that they are definitely in favor.
Actually, this one,
Oh, was it in this one?
it's in this one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I just read it just a while ago.
Well, they've always had that furthest one to the east that way.
I read it a little while ago, I don't remember where it was at, but I read it.
I think I put it in there.
You did too?
I know I spoke to a cashier.
Oh, maybe it was in, never mind.
Extreme, and she would be for it.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
I read too many things today.
I travel all over the United States and help.
It says exceed the speed limit, the posted speed limit, 1 to 5 miles is $50.50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It goes up to $60.50 if you're 10 miles over.
yeah.
And if you're 11 to 15, it goes up to another 70, and it doesn't jump a great deal. Looks to me like you ought to go at least 15 miles, or at least 10 to 15 mimiles an hour, because there's very little difference in penalty for it.
Go for it. And tell me where you're at when you do.
That's what it looks to me.
I'm just saying, Doc.
I greatly appreciate your in-depth consideration and thinking about the situation.
So he's gonna be speeding around town.
Pretty good.
Surely there ought to be a bigger increase for him, and maybe start smaller.
The one
Not
that
said by
surprised
me.
me the most was when I read it in the paper when my son got one on his way back to college.
Oh, yeah, not said by me.
Emergency management.
Real quick, if I could. Are we going
We're off.
backwards? No, I want to recognize that it's National Police Week, May 12th through the 18th.
Yes, it is.
And so, thank you for what you do, and we want to recognize that, so thanks. So,
Appreciate that, thank you.
I'm done. Now go right on.
All right. Emergency management. I've got a meeting Thursday with Tom Hurley, reference placement of the new sirens. So we are moving forward there. I'll probably have to get with Jeff because part of that placement is deciding on electricity. But like I said, we are still moving forward. We're probably getting pretty close to actually installing because they said it was about a 3-month lead time. So we're getting probably pretty close.
The number goes down, but the coverage is supposed to be the
It's
same or better.
tremendous.
Yeah.
It's outside any city limits we'll have.
I believe tomorrow.
Did you have anything, Heather? Protective inspection.
To date, 2019, we have 5 single-family dwellings. That permits, that's what we've issued so far. But it's getting to that point in time in the year that we're gonna start issuing more.
Moving on to government and finance, economic development. There are meeting notes from the chamber and the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. Any questions or comments? Don, anything you want to point out?
No, I'm off the board now.
Yeah.
I'm not. The chamber dinner was last Thursday. I think it went over well. We had one of our own was honored as Citizen of the Year, Sandy Bucks, so that was exciting. And for the first time, we did a silent auction. I don't know how much money we actually made on the silent auction.
Not nearly as much.
Not
as we
very
hoped.
much, not very much, but we're gonna keep growing it and getting it bigger and better, and maybe do live auctions at some point. But I thought it was very well attended.
Great. Park board. Agenda's in your packet. And meeting notes. Any questions or comments? Moving on, cemetery report. There actually is a agenda for their meeting. Anything you point out, Heather?
Nope. This is just a meeting that they typically coordinate to, before Memorial Day, to work on the schedule, who's gonna take collections. They always do take donations at the cemetery during Memorial Weekend. And then, I think that they had at least one, cemetery board member that they were looking to replace, so, if there was somebody interested in that, they'll let them know.
Nothing for tree board? Library board? Meeting minutes are in your packet. Any questions? April 2019 financial statements?
You might notice that our account numbers are different. This is from our chart of accounts conversion. It has been a learning curve for us and for, I don't know if the departments have noticed any difference. Yes, please have. The numbering system is quite different, so we're still working out some of the bugs on it, but so far so good.
Any questions? Bills over $1,250. It's on page 159.
Kinda high this month, isn't it?
We finally are paying for our digger derrick truck that we
Oh,
approved last
okay.
year, so that will be,
That's quite a bit good.
yep.
So the golf and social club down payment, 10,000, what is that? Is that just, so how many more we have to do, or?
Nothing else until we have a finalized contract. This is just kind of an earnest money type payment. That's what our memorandum that we approved for them stated, that we would pay them $2,000.
Now, who do we pay that to?
To the Centralia Golf and Social Club.
Oh, we paid them,
We
okay.
paid them.
But when is the contract supposed to be done?
It's still with the attorneys. I sent Boyd some more information the other day, so.
Any other questions? Other general government, City Hall transformation design quote. That's in your packet.
So as part of our, I don't know how far we ever got with the remodel portion of City Hall, whenever we went with ESP. But in order to kind of maximize space, since we do have more people in our office now, we talked to Inside the Lines, just because we had a contact there and someplace to start. And this quote is actually just to give us a design on how to reconfigure the space that we currently have. And then once we got that, then we would be able to have a better idea of how much it's gonna cost, which I'm quite certain it's gonna be more than the $10,000 we have in the budget this year. But it's what we could look for in the following years, or we could look to.
When we originally cut it off the ESP proposals, we said we needed to do something still. That was just how we were trying to pay for it at that point in time.
Right.
But this $2,750, this layout fee, would it go towards the purchase if they were to end up doing a better than one? It's coming
No,
off?
no, this would just be for the design. This is for them to come in.
Because they're gonna bid it as well, right?
No.
They won't? Inside the lines?
Well, I don't know. Are they just an architectural firm, or are they?
No.
No, they
design and
do
build?
the design and build.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know who Bruce Suzuki uses?
No,
I don't either, I was just curious.
I could contact him and find out.
I would ask him before we do anything. Bruce does facilities for Hubble, so he's got some contacts. You can reach out to him just to see if this, because I don't know if this is reasonable or not.
And I don't either. It's just the one that we had a contact, so we got all of them.
He's done a fair amount of that type of work in the last couple of years, so it'd be worth the.
Sure,
reaching out to him.
absolutely. And this, it's probably not something we'll bring back next week, but since I had it, I thought I would present it to you to kind of let you know what direction we were taking. So we'd like to take anyway, depending on how much it's gonna cost.
Any other?
David, I forgot something.
I would love to hear.
One more thing.
Can I speak? We held interviews last Wednesday night, and we have a candidate moving forward, and we will present him to you next Monday night as a full-time police officer. He is one of our former dispatchers. Spent almost 4 years in St. Louis Police Department, and is ready to get out of the big city and come back home. So, you'll get to meet him next Monday night.
So would this make 10 full-time officers?
No. No. Yeah.
But 10 including the chief.
Yeah, 10 including the chief.
You count.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I count, but
This
just
would
wanna
be-
let y'all know.
This would be the second of the two.
This is the second of the
additional
two
that we had.
full-timers that we had
No, I got
from
you.
the police
Yeah.
safety task.
Oh, that's right.
Next week, before our meeting, Sydney has agreed to do some training, council training, some of it will be on Centralia law. So we would like to do that at, I think it's 6 o'clock, it might be 6:30, but I'll let you all know, but she is, providing dinner. So. Make it a little bit easier.
The only
for
other
everybody.
we got is.
What's going on with the cemetery? Mother's Day, that looks like crap.
We'll contact the,
You didn't see the headstones, the leaves were so tall.
okay.
They were out there again tonight trying to mow, but I don't know that it was doing any good, but they
Well,
were out there
exactly.
trying to mow.
I mean, Memorial Day's coming up.
Okay.
Mhm.
We want to present this to Donnie, Rogers' birthday.
Good job, John.
So, there's 3 things as you get older that I think you need, that I think you need. They're important. So Donnie, you might share that with us.
That's good stuff there.
Skills to keep the strength up.
What was wrong with no e-cigarettes?
And you want to take care of your lips. And when you work hard, it's got this, that's got the soft light applicator.
Jeff, you need anything?
So when you work so hard, and then you always want to protect your lips, so I got you some fairy dust. Yeah. So happy birthday.
Well, I want to thank the city of Centralia and all the aldermen for the gift here. All you have to do is change your birthday to a Monday night, and you can get the same welcome here.
And you got leftover graduation cupcakes.
Yeah, that's leftover graduation cupcakes too.
They're really good.
And if anybody needs this worse than I do. But I'm not sure what this, what's lip gloss?
Put it on, let's see.
Yeah, put it on a little
Put
bit.
it on your lips, it'll moisturize.
I'll just eat my Skittles.
Is there any other SB rights?
I have one tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in this very room. There will be a listening session for our puzzle piece and some other stuff that's going on for the bicentennial thing, so you should all be excited and attentive.
Put a little more enthusiasm in it there.
Sorry.
Hey, I thought, say, aren't you on that committee too? Aren't you supposed to be enthusiastic about this?
That was about as much enthusiasm as I could get.
Where we stand on the plan for the street?
Mike and I have talked to them, and he had some more questions, we answered the questions, and we're waiting on a response.
I thought that was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago.
I'll give him a call in the morning.
2 things, can I ask 2 real quick? What's happening with Narragansett and the bids for tearing that down?
We still have not received our bid packets yet.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and the other question that came up, and I know they're gonna talk about it tomorrow, I think maybe at the chamber meeting, is will these, how soon are you gonna tear out all these sidewalks and replace them? Will that be done before or after Anchorfest?
It's supposed to be done before Anchorfest, that we have been told it will be done before Anchorfest.
Okay,
Well, realizing that the week of Anchorfest, they will be blocked and won't be able to get in there.
Yes, we told them
That leaves them a very short time period.
Yep.
It's only 3
It
weeks.
don't take long to pour sidewalk.
yeah, but they gotta tear the whole other one
It don't
out.
take long to tear sidewalk out.
But somebody's gotta get on the ball and actually do something first.
Hey, well, cancel Anchorfest.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I have a motion, can I hear a second? I have a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you.
No, no.